Okay, my history with your work um, dates back to seeing some videos that a few years ago that Janet Wong passed on. One in particular, you're walking down the street in Philadelphia.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and then I believe what was the beginning of Terrestrials, you were on the beach. Wasn't the beach in Brazil? It was a performance that was happening on a beach with other people. So um, uh, how did this I understand that this Sprout is the first of a series of collaborations, right? And
Yes.
how did this come about, this collaboration?
Yes, it's very circuitous. Do I need to say anything like, hi, I'm Makini, anything like that?
I don't think so. No, I
Okay,
don't think so.
okay.
Nobody else has done that yet.
Okay, okay. Um, yeah, it feels like a kind of circuitous, swirling, dazed beginning. I think that this work has been in pre-research for a while. And it feels like I can identify the first inklings of it from when I was doing it. I'm originally from California. I lived a long time, most of my life in Philadelphia, and then now I live in Durham, North Carolina. Um, and around until I became a parent of a now 20.5-month-old, I
Congratulations.
thank you. I would go to California every year to visit family. I still have a lot of family there. And on one of these visits, I went through, I think I flew into Las Vegas, and I knew that I wanted to be on the road for a month because I had just left a job at Swarthmore College that I had been at for 10 years. And I was coming into this new found glory as a self-employed person, short-lived glory. Um, and so I knew that I wanted to spend some time just on the road. I love to road trip, and I grew up road tripping. And so I flew to Las Vegas because that's where one of my exes lived, who is now a good friend. And I stayed with him for a couple of days, and then from Las Vegas, drove through Northern California, through Sacramento, where my older sister lives, and then along the coast, stopped in the Bay for a little bit to see friends and family friends, and then drove along the coast to LA and San Diego. On that trip, which I got a very incredibly bad sunburn, the worst in my life, and I'm not used to knowing how to deal with them, so it was awful. But I got that sunburn, I think partially because of the glare from the windshield, because I was in the car for a long time in beautiful sunny day weather in the summer, and partially because at the time, for whatever reason, I don't know, I mean, I I just felt moved to pull over on the side of the road that I was on, or the freeway, um, and probably did about 8 impromptu performances on the way from Vegas to Southern California. In these beautiful, I think part of it was just the beauty of it, like the beautiful landscapes, the desert, which I thought was incredible. Then, I mean, going along Route 1 in California, incredible beaches. And it felt like something that I shouldn't be doing. For one, just because of the precarity of being on the side of the road. For two, being a Black, ostensibly male man figure, doing something that is not particularly legal, in intentionally in very wide open spectacle, kind of scenery, because that's what, I saw it and I just was attracted to it. And I was like, it, 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 it felt like in the moment a way to really claim a belonging to this place and that it belongs to me, you know, both of those things, you know, the kind of yin and yang of belonging.
And when you say this place, is that this terrestrial plane that we live on? We belong to this world.
So part of that is, yes, this is specifically thinking about this planet, you know, of being this planet. And partially it was a real reckoning. It took me a long time after leaving California. It took me a long time to reckon with California and, you know, a lot of different family history and uh the beauty of the natural beauty of the place, the beauty of somewhat of growing up in a place like that, and then also just some of the horrors of it, you know. So I think I think partially it was reconciling with that, reconciling
So
with,
you're doing these impromptu performances by the highway,
yeah,
moved,
yeah,
right, right. So the title is Terrestrial, the Sprout,
yeah.
right? And I say the title is pretty grand. I think maybe you've already been trying to get at it. Could you speak to it?
Yes, I
Speak
know.
more to it.
It yeah, it is pretentiously grand. And I feel like we might as well go there, you know, to a place that we can never live up to. Um, the terrestrial, which is the name that houses the series of works, of performance works and visual works that will be in this body, has to do with us living beings, and specifically humans as Earth, as opposed to on the Earth or with the Earth, but as a part of the Earth, as Earth. And in particular, thinking about, because I think because I was traveling back and forth between here and between the what's called the US and what's called Brazil, you know, for several years at that point, I was thinking of an expansiveness to history beyond this kind of, you know, like past 500 years or past, you know, 1200 years, depending on how you think about the container of white supremacy, you know, beyond
Mm-hmm.
that, and just understanding that all of us living beings have cells that, you know, contain epic histories in
Mm-hmm.
relation to these geological histories that are around us. And so wanting to explore through the kind of vessel of a time capsule, imagining, you know, beings. I think 12,000 years into the future, because I was thinking about the kind of what some historians say was is the, you know, the beginnings of agriculture, and then what if we swing around to the opposite side of that in history and then look back on this historical moment,
Uh-huh.
trying to make sense of it.
Well, you know,
Um,
I think we're going to get to those things as you're covering a
oh.
lot. I'm very proud of my homeworks here, but I would say so. You it's a collaboration with quite a few kind of interesting people. How
Yeah.
did that happen? How did you choose the collaborators, or they chose you?
The I think it's always both of those things.
Mm-hmm.
We had been circling one another for a while. Anderson and Nefertiti and I are the three co-directors of the terrestrial projects. Anderson, I met in Brazil in the city called Belo Horizonte. It was 2025, 7 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we began my Portuguese was a lot worse at the time. And so we began really talking to one another and around one another, and just being kind of amused with the ways that it felt like we were both approaching language.
So,
And
had you worked before? Had you danced before together? You
no,
just
no, no, no. We met one another at a show. We met one another at a show. He's a performer as well as a poet, as well as a playwright. And there was just something, I feel like there was something interesting in the way that because it was a kind of immersive performance, and I think we were interested in the way that we were both members of the audience, the way that we
And the name is Anderson.
Anderson Feliciano.
Anderson
Anderson Feliciano.
Feliciano. Right, right, right. Now, just digging in a little bit more, the Sprout, is that because this is the first one? Or is it because it is a solo? What is the Sprout?
Yes. Before I go to that, I just want to mention that the other co-director, Nefertiti Charlene Altan, I also met in Brazil, but she's from the Bay. Like I had my early years, my formative years. And I think similarly, we met each other in very different contexts. She was actually my Portuguese tutor at first. And then we went to some performances together and were interested in the way that we, again, with the way that we were witnessing. And so after I had been in the world of kind of pre-research for this work, I knew that it was something that I couldn't carry on my own. I knew that with both of these people, we'd been having these conversations around creating together, around building together. And so it seemed like an opportunity to see what happens together. And it's been really wonderful so far in this beginning moment, which, yes, the Sprout does have to do with kind of the being nascent, like this moment of creation. It also has to do with growing in multiple directions.
Mm-hmm.
This work itself is really thinking a lot about legacy of a human lifetime in relationship to geological histories that are so much.
Right, right. Well, okay, good, good. Now, I'm reading the press release. There's a lot of language in there. I'm big on language. So,
Okay. Yes.
what of speculative futurist thought and equity-based models of cooperation? Now, could you untangle that for me? Speculative futurist thought and equity-based models of cooperation.
Speculative futurist thought. I think, partially it has to do with imagining kind of the repopulation of this moment from the imagination that we are beyond, into the future beyond, a future that feels a little bit indescribable because there's so much from 12,000 years ago that's not readily available in the way that so much information is readily available right now in this historical moment. So thinking about, speculative.
It's like science fiction.
Yes, it is science fiction. Yes, it absolutely has to do with that, and it is. And also, I think that the way that we're approaching it has to do with trying to feel our way toward epic memory, feel our way toward the histories that are in our postures, that are in the kind of the most quotidian of the ways that we relate to one another, that have been with us, and that could be, if thinking about, like the logic that we're using to understand how to be in the world right now is accessed through looking at this constellation of stuff in a particular way.
Now you said you used the word, it's beautifully put, epic memory. Is that what is that epic memory? The 12,000 years in the future and 12,000 years in the past? Is that what you mean?
What I mean by that in particular is a memory that is inaccessible by by immediate interaction with the event. So beyond my lifetime, and then also beyond the lifetimes that the people around me and the people that I've read have access to tell about, from in any kind of first person way, access to things that feel like there's some cosmic understanding that, is for all intents and purposes indescribable, that's so known.
One
that
note I put here, I said, oh, so you can envision the future.
yes. But I think that it's the yes, I can. And I think that that is something that all of us have access to. And, I mean, I don't mean that in a way that, I don't have any identity as a fortune teller. My mother and my sister are both seers. They have premonitory dreams. That is something that I feel like I have been touched by in moments in my life. And I think it's also one of the reasons why I'm a terrible sleeper, because I'm afraid of that. So that's not me.
Mm.
But seeing, yes, visionaries of the future, because we have access, if we pay attention, to so much information within us.
And you feel there's specific, certain chosen humans that have it, or does everyone have it?
Um, I think that everyone has access. I think that everyone has access to much more information than I think we actualize.
Uh-huh.
In terms of being a seer, I don't think that that's something that everybody has.
Mm-hmm.
Something that I don't have. It's something that I think is a tremendous and horrific gift. Both of
Mm.
those things.
So
Um,
that's so you yeah witness Cassandra in the Trojan Wars. What and how does it or you quote recalibrate social, cultural, and physical existence?
that was the what I'll say is that that was a bit of language that we tweaked through consensus, and that wasn't my first choice. What I would say is recalibrating codes as opposed to existence.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by codes is I think about like what I was saying about that. Okay, so thinking about actions described as functional. For instance,
Mm-hmm.
I have to breathe to live, and I'd better keep breathing. I have to
Mm-hmm.
blink, to protect my eyes. It's something that is functional. And then thinking about what it might mean to propose aesthetic interruption or aesthetic introduction into what we understand as functional. So yes, I have to breathe, but I don't have to inhale every time my eyes close to blink.
Mm-hmm.
But if that were the case, that those two things were linked, creating a certain kind of aesthetic functionality, what might that create about an understanding of a human body, and then also what might that create in terms of an understanding uh, of aesthetics, of
Uh-huh.
the way that aesthetics can operate in relationship to us.
So this is great, and you're very poetic in your speaking. I really appreciate that. What could
Oh
you
no, you want
share?
me to be more practical?
What could you share about the process of making terrestrial? Um, uh, for instance, I have here, what is a movement doula?
Yeah, a movement doula, and that terminology comes from the movement doula that we've been working with, who is Melanie George, and the the way that through her research, she's making waves. She's making way for new understandings of practice, of researched movement to enter into new territory.
Do you have a practice? I mean, you're a very you're new to me, and I'm very excited. I sometimes ask people, could they talk about their training or their influence or what have you? But what is your practice? What could you share with me about the
Mhm.
practice, and how did it come into the collaboration?
Yes, I mean, this is also going to be quite circuitous. What I'll say is that my I think that my original trainings started in uh, uh, living rooms and parties with my cousins, with my
Mhm.
siblings, my family. And that was the kind of linchpin of my training for a long time.
So social dancing.
So social dancing, social uh, creation of an understanding of environment together. Like there's a kind of understanding of being at the party, but then in living rooms, the reinvention of a living room space as the proscenium, as the club, as like the different kinds of formations that
As a
happen.
child, I come from a large family. We used to do
Oh
talent
yeah,
shows, talent shows,
yeah.
and sit my parents down, and we all. I think we even put up curtains once. So this is this something like what you were doing? You were creating
Oh
already
yeah.
before. Hmm?
Talent shows, music videos. I mean, full on theatrical productions. I come from an organizing family too, so my siblings and I were often in, kind of community skits, agitprop kind of theatrical productions for youth when we were younger.
Now you said an organized family. In other words, we were activists. Your family was activists. It was a political
Yeah.
bent, social political bent.
Yeah, I grew up within a Pan-Africanist community, and so yes, activism, organizing were the social and also kind of I mean, it occupied the place of religion in my immediate household.
Mm-hmm.
My maternal grandfather was a Baptist pastor, so there was some relationship to
Mm-hmm.
Baptist Christianity, but for in my immediate household, the place of religion was occupied by Pan-Africanist ideology. Um, so yes, so I grew up, attending African dance performances, capoeira demonstrations. Um,
Do you carry any of those in your practice now? For instance, yeah, and your doula, it is she, right? Uh,
Melanie, yeah,
yeah, Melanie. She has a particular training that directs her research.
she's she's just come into a new framing of her practice as I think before she was calling herself, she referred to herself as a neo jazz artist and historian. I can't remember jazz informed. She is now a
Yeah, I saw that jazz informed, as
yes,
opposed to jazz adjacent, but
yes,
jazz
yes, yes.
jazz informed. What does that mean, jazz informed? I thought most black folks are somehow they're jazz informed, but
I think she would agree with you. I think
mm-hmm,
she would agree with you. I think for her specifically, she's jazz music and various types of jazz and jazz informed dancing, a movement has influenced her research and her practice as an artist, as a practitioner, as a performer. And so she spent a lot of time in the study and also a lot of time in the practice. Uh,
I've just come now. Well, just not come. I don't know if you saw the Edges of Ailey at the Whitney,
I
but
had no,
it was major. But one of the
yeah,
things is Mr. Ailey actually pulled that out of his heart and pulled that out of his community. And what was watching people in a juke joint carrying on, but then he was really curious about ballet.
yeah.
So what we take to be the Ailey style now, people say, "Oh, it's just jazz dance." Well, it's more complicated than that. First,
Mhm.
did you have what I call conventional modern training or ballet training that met this other social training that you had?
Yes, when I started training in the studio, my first training was Kariama Welsh's contemporary African dance technique, Mfundula, uh, through my teacher Sikamal Nance, and that was my foundational training, studio training. And then after that, I trained for several years at the Philadelphia Dance Company with the Philadelphia Dance Company, Philadenco.
Philadelphia, yes. Mm-hmm.
So coming out of those, those Black dance lineages, and then and then at the same time, I was on my way to graduate school, studying various postmodern styles from
Right.
born out of the US. And at the same time, I was studying in summers in Europe, so learning different.
When you say postmodern styles, like what?
Um, I mean, I say postmodern styles. What I mean is that, you know, like I was studying with Keith Thompson, who was in the Trisha Brown company for a long time, and it was also the rehearsal director. One of my most influential teachers, Marian Soto, was a student of oh my goodness. Who was her? Also another one of the teachers who I learned a lot from, David Zambrano, also studied with this person. Ah, God, no.
A type of a choreographer, or
It's a choreographer. And when I say postmodern styles, I mean, you know, the styles that would be that I could think of as linked to a particular person, you know, in relationship to like what's called release technique or form, you know, now, or forms that are highly influenced by Merce Cunningham. So I have that information as a part of my training. And also a lot of my training has come from various contemporary African dance techniques and styles, and neo-traditional African dance.
very clear. But thank you for that. I hear that that the work is described as a solo, and yet I hear that there are maybe pop-up performance appearances in it, or guests might be a part of it. Is that true? And could you speak to that?
I wouldn't know what to say about guests being a part of it, but what I can tell you is that this solo work is really delving into how many people it takes to construct a solo. You know, how many people it takes to, how many people are involved in the construction of a being.
Mm-hmm.
I like to say that I don't do anything alone,
Mm-hmm.
even though, you know, I'm in various instances credited as a lead artist on something, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't deny any of the leadership that I'm proud of, the innovation that I'm proud of, but I don't do anything alone. All of
I
that
understand.
is chiseled in deep collaborations.
Well, do you want to say anything about that intense, beautiful performer that I see in your materials?
Oh my gosh, Jermaine Ingram is just incredible. I mean, she's I think I first encountered her as a tap dancer, but she's a lawyer for, how many years is she a lawyer? 40 years.
Wow.
Um, I believe at the time, let me not put her business out there, but she's an elder. She's an elder person. Um, she's a vocalist. Uh, and she's just very dynamic and very captivating, as you can see from the image.
Yes. Yeah. Well, how did she? Was she in your sphere? Was she one of these people that the
Yeah,
universe sent to you, or how did that happen?
we first met one another. I was a dancer in the Leah Stein Dance Company in Philadelphia, and she came in. She was a kind of a guest artist in the performing. You know, Leah would often bring in, I think what she called it, community performers. So she came in as a community performer, and later was a member of the company. And I was just it was also, I think this has a lot to do with how I get attracted to people. I was very interested in the way that she observed what was going on.
Uh-huh.
I kind of wanted to,
Where did she observe what was going on? Where?
in
I
rehearsal,
see.
what was
Uh-huh.
happening in rehearsal. I felt like I wanted to experience the world from inside of her body.
Mm.
Know what it felt like to learn as she learns.
I
Um,
see. I
so in
see.
that sense, I wanted to learn from her.
You know,
And
was it an accident that the at least the trailer that I've seen,
yeah.
she is standing in what looks like a futurist, dystopian environment, and I was thinking, well, is this environment significant, or was that a choice that you made? It's overgrown. There's weeds. There's what's going on there.
Yes. Yes, those they were intentional choices. It's so hard because I don't think of this work as dystopian. And there are so many dystopian precedents in relationship to speculative play,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
so it's really hard to rail against that, which I don't want to, I mean, those works are elders of this one. It's not that this has nothing to do with that, but also I'm more interested in dreaming about the possibility, dreaming about the ways that we might care into the future, for one another,
Mm-hmm. I
dreaming
see.
about our interdependence into the future.
So it says here, the sprout wanders through the terrain of identity amidst the impossibility of individuation. Wanders through the terrain of identity amidst the impossibility of individuation.
I know
It sounds like a
I was
conundrum, doesn't it? Is it a conundrum?
it is a conundrum. It is a conundrum. I was just talking a good friend of mine, Shannon Murphy, we collaborated together for many years. I remember we had a long rehearsal at the studio that she had in her home. And after rehearsal, she was gossiping about something to me, and I was looking at her face for it. She can talk. So she was talking for a long time. And I was looking at her face, and then all of a sudden it's like her eyes started to shift and something shifted in her forehead and one of her cheeks too. Like her face just started to transform. And I was just looking at her, seeing her shift into some way or some person that I hadn't seen her as before.
Hmm.
And it feels like it takes a long time of looking at somebody's face before that is allowed to happen, that kind of shifting. But
What is this impossibility of individuation?
that's what I think about. I think it's the the way that the way that it's impossible to be a fixed, stationary, knowable thing, person, being in my, like from in my research, in relationship to my research. That's what I understand. The
Mm-hmm.
impossibility of that. And also the impossibility of separating ourselves from the everything of it all.
The everything or the everyday of it all?
The everything of it all.
Okay.
Understanding that these, these cells jump, the notion of myself as even the kind of clarity of my physical body, like my mitochondria has activity and decisions, to make, and tasks that it succeeds at or fails at that I don't even know about consciously. And good thing that I
Uh-huh.
don't, all those things need to happen.
Well, may I stop you? You're saying I. Are you talking
Yeah,
about a soul? You were able to separate yourself from your mitochondria, right?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
what are we talking about then?
It's it feels like a shorthand because to a certain extent I feel like I know that I can do that and assume that you and people that are experiencing this conversation have some idea what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
But in reality, I might talk about I and I, I mean, like the various I's, the what is the delineation between my mother and myself.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways it makes sense, and in some ways it is a shorthand to be able to be able to talk about something that
Mm-hmm.
we don't necessarily have all the language tools to be able to explain in the amount of time that it would take to
I
really
understand. I
at it.
understand. And I won't wear you out. But you're seeing if I may, the energy, the vibe coming from you is a very spiritual dude. You know, like
Oh, really?
I mean, you seem to be operating from some level that is past material. Uh, is that too esoteric for you?
No, 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 no. I'm an Aquarius. It's hard to be too
Me
esoteric.
too.
Yes, I did know this about you. Um, no, no. And yes, I do identify as I do identify as spiritual. It's not always something that I lean into necessarily,
Mhm.
but the I'm deeply I love to dance. I
Mm.
have to dance. I feel like there are things in relationship to the materiality of us that I need to know and experience and figure out and be curious about and fail to understand.
So something that's not delivered by a poem, not delivered by singing, not delivered by playing an instrument, but there's something, because I'm assuming dance means this embodied expression. So, but usually I love to dance.
I love to, yes, yes, yes. It embodied. And I think, I think it is sung. I mean, that what I think about when I think about dance, oh gosh, and I like to entertain, theory in relationship to these conversations, but really what I think about in relationship to dance is the satisfaction that I get in relationship to rhythm and syncopation.
Mm.
I mean, all of that math and soul, like it feels like that
Mm-hmm.
combination of math and soul, um, and the interpersonal, the way that the abstraction of my movement in relationship to someone else, that
Mm-hmm.
the thing that creates together is just so amazing. And so in the context of a solo, I'm really thinking about that also in relationship to a body who is performing and the witnesses who are
Uh-huh.
also in the performance.
Right, right. A collaboration, a quote, a collaborative of Black, Indigenous, and mestiza artists from lands currently called, quotation, Brazil and, quote, United States. Sounds like we're getting into like kind of a cultural, political exegesis of some sort. So what do you mean with it? Indigenous and mestiza artists from lands currently called Brazil and the United States.
It's always a swirl with me. So again, I'm going to, I am in deep consideration of your question. And I'm going to start with my birth name is Jumatatu. That's
Right.
the first name that I've known the longest. It's still my name. It's not a dead name. And I go now I go by Makini now. Um, which is a living name now. And I think similar to how I have been accumulating these names and probably will continue.
Mm-hmm.
Makini, I don't know how long that'll be a kind of primary name for me. It's working for now, and I needed it. But I think of names as similar to language, a useful approximation, a useful shorthand for things that are beyond containment by those, by that symbol, the
Like Brazil and the United States are
exactly
also,
like
quote,
Brazil.
just names.
They're yes, they are names. I don't know about I don't know if I said that. Hearing it back, they are just names.
Well, I put that because of the quotations around them.
Oh, okay, okay. The I think it's a, it is a convenient shorthand to refer to this as the US. It's a convenient shorthand. I know that people will understand something that I'm saying. And also there is some truth in that, And there's also a lot of lying in that, you know, in that name, in that nomeation of this place. And both of those, you know, but the truth and the lying all are a part of the reality of it.
This is like the land acknowledgement question. Is it true that, well, at least we were there a few years ago, everyone should know at every moment where you're standing is, in fact, probably stolen land? But that's not exactly what you're saying, but it feels related.
Absolutely, it is absolutely related. This work is absolutely in conversation with contemporary notions of indigeneity, which feel like they are always in conversation with colonialism. So in conversation with that kind of contemporary construction, you know,
Right.
that modernist construction, and also the there's not necessarily unanimous agreement on, you know, the nomeation of land before the imposition of this imposed nation state. History was long before that too, and names are useful when they're useful, and then other things are useful, you know, like names come and go. So that dynamism isn't just a part of this contemporary construction of the notion of indigeneity in relationship to colonialism. So the quotations are markers of the imposition of imperialism, of colonialism, and they're also markers of the expansiveness of us in relationship to our nomeation systems, which are approximations.
You're very generous. You're a very generous person. Now, quote, they are developing a body of performance-based time capsules that imagine half-truth, rumored, or hyperbolized image fragments of Blackness and indigeneity throughout the past several decades, patching together the plurality of these phenomena through, quote, invented court and ceremony dances situated in the very distant future. Now, that's a mouthful, you know.
Yeah.
Should I break it down? Like, first of all, that list performance-based time capsules that imagine half-truth, rumored, or hyperbolized image fragments of Blackness and indigeneity.
So my sister's also an artist. She's a filmmaker. And we often talk to one another about the prevalence of the cultural position of lying, which I don't think is the, you know, I think
of lying, you said?
Of lying, you know,
lying, you like President Trump.
Not like that. I mean, you know, I mean, I guess there is a relationship, you know. I think performance is a collection of beautiful lies that holds so much truth. You know, I think of lies as of invention, of subversion, of a relationship to fact.
Could you give me an example? What do you mean? How is performance a beautiful lie? Excuse me if I'm condensing things.
No, that's fine. You know, you can go there. You can go there.
You said, what do you mean by lie, beautiful lies, or?
In the way that I think that it is from in my work. I don't think that all performance needs to be this way, but in the work that I'm most excited to help to create, it is necessary to have an invention of a reality that has its own logic. And that logic has its own set of, you know, I mean, as logic does, you know, like the if-thens, the of consequences built into that logic, and that can be destabilizing if that logic is just allowed to live out on the street in a way that assumes that everybody else has some access to it. You know, for instance, like if I have this thing where my blinking is in relationship to an exhale, which can create a kind of beautiful lie in performance that if I were to try to maintain that throughout the day, first of all, could, lead to some respiratory issues for me.
Yes.
Could serve as a kind of, alienating facade in relationship to other people trying to develop some relationship to intimacy, some relationship to, what feels like honesty. It's not that I think that beautiful lie is dishonest. It's that it's a reality that has its own place.
Because I thought something more mundane, and you seem to be pushing this idea that each performance is in some ways a pretend. That you would like the audience to come with you in a journey of imagination. Now, is that that seems like part of what you might be talking about, right?
Yes, it is part of what I'm talking about. Imagination and attention. And it's funny because I think that I haven't done the etymology, but I would assume that attention and pretend are coming from the same root. Tendre, it feels like in relationship to, that word in French or that word in Portuguese.
Mm-hmm.
So at least within the construct that we're, the linguistic construct within which we're living, those things have a relationship to one another.
So you're not claiming that I'm going to be seeing in this solo absolute realness. A person's going to be like they walk in and they just throw their dance bag down and they give me the truth. You can imagine, you know what I mean? You know the type of performance,
yes,
snatched from the street or
right. That is absolutely not this. And I would never say that what we are presenting is not reality. I think that it is its own reality. Just not the reality I imagine that people will be arriving at the theater with.
There's this whole question of futurity and imagination. You're saying that the speculative thinking there's a lot of separating me from the world that I'm in now. I must go on a journey with you. It all sounds so cliche, but that's the language I have to use. You are inviting me to actually leave something to go with you somewhere else.
Yes. And there's also the even during the performance, there is continuously the invitation to go, to move. There's I think that migration is not unrelated to what we're looking at in this work. And there are moments in which we ask witnesses who come to experience the work to go from one place to another place, physically in the space. So it's not
how do you ask?
In different ways. I think that it
doesn't need to give away your secrets or anything. There's literally how hands-on in it, how directed is it?
What I'll say is that we ask earnestly. It is a sincere ask, and continuously. There are various opportunities because it's in relationship to asking of a witness within performance. It might take 2 or 3 times before certain people get warmed up enough to be able to engage with that kind of ask.
What's in the air if I'm inspired and being invited? What's the music like? Is there music? There's
yes. Oh my gosh, we are in these last 3 weeks that we have, we are this close to finally securing the rights to one very important song, which I'll say that it's a song by Minnie Riperton, who is a glorious singer. I think her use of I can't remember the technical terminology for it, but her whistle register, what is it? I can't remember what that term is.
It's not falsetto, but
it's not falsetto.
A whistle register. I never heard that before. I get it though. I know her voice.
Yeah. But it inspired much of the early pre-research for this work to make use of falsetto, to make
Mm,
use of a voice that's heady. You know, it
mhm.
feels like, and it feels like the whistle register is beyond heady. It feels like it is way up here,
Right.
and the falsetto feels like it is located very much in and around head.
So does the issue of the performer's gender matter to you? Was gender part of this conceiving of Sprout?
Yes, yes, it was, and yes, it does. For the sprout, we were thinking a lot, and early research for the sprout was we spent about a month studying Intore, which is a court dance form, war dance from Rwanda. Rwanda or Burundi, there are conflicting stories, or there are multiple stories, multiple origin stories.
Mhm.
And it is, gosh, one of the most glorious dance forms I've ever experienced. It was gorgeous. And
What is it again for our listeners? What is it?
Intore, it's called Intore.
And it comes from
Rwanda
Rwanda.
and or Burundi. I'm not from Rwanda or Burundi. I may get in trouble for, sourcing it to both of those places, but I'm still in my own learning journey in relationship to this beautiful
Mhm,
form.
mhm.
It's at its roots, to make a long story short, it would be it was danced by men with bells around ankles and the representation of a spear in hands. And it would traditionally be performed with actual spears.
Like the Watusi study. I studied with Percival Board, and we had two sticks held,
Yeah,
and he was very particular about the way the sticks are held, and a lot
yeah,
of it, and there are bells on the feet, and it's
yeah.
very propulsive, up and down, and he would say that when you heard these people do it traditionally, you could hear them a mile away coming. Now, I'm wondering if this is a tradition that you're referencing there.
This is the Watusi. And I'm not a historian. I can't remember well enough what the relationship is, but this is I do not believe that they're the same. I do not believe that they're the same. I think
Mhm.
that they're connected just because of geographically where
Right.
the regions that they're coming from in East Africa. Um, but this dance, I think traditionally it's done in a six, and it's traditionally it will be done by the warriors for the king, for the royal family after a successful battle, back to.
Mm-hmm.
And so it is initially I was interested in the fact that it was described as a court dance because not I don't encounter that language in relationship to many African dance forms.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and also I had been for about a decade, I was studying and practicing Southern Black majorette forms and talking about them as court dances, treating them as
Uh-huh.
court dances in relationship to performance. So yeah, so
That's the end of that quote. The quote is uh, patching together the plurality of these phenomena through invented court ceremony dances situated in the very distant future.
yes, we are the so back to that initial imagining of these future beings looking back,
Mm-hmm.
imagining what if beings from the future encounter a time capsule from this period and are charged to create a court dance or a court performance
Mm.
commemorative of Black people based on this, these stray elements in the time capsule, and a lot of speculation.
Well, it's so much to look forward to. Um, as an artist, how are you feeling?
God. Yeah, I know. This is probably the most hesitant in relationship to response that you'll get from me. How am I feeling as an artist? As an artist, okay, so putting my artist hat on, I'm feeling the precarity of trying to create networks of resources that will support our needs and desires in relationship to a nonprofit field and public funding, whatever there is of it, that is capitulating in various moments at various sides to a Machiavellian administration. I'm thinking about already in preceding that, you know, the swinging tides of these philanthropic foundations that hoard so much of the money that people need, and you know, contribute a certain portion of that as charity work. I'm thinking about
You sound a little bitter about that.
well, I mean, I think that to a certain amount of bitterness just feels like common sense.
Mm-hmm.
I think, but I think beyond bitter, which I think bitterness is there, but I think beyond bitter, I'm just disappointed. I'm one of few exceptions that has been very awarded by, you know, these foundations. And I think that that is unjust. To put it briefly, I think that it is unjust, and I resent having to prove a certain class of excellence in order to in order to receive the things that I need.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's just segue to this one. This might be redundant, but as a person, how are you feeling? I heard you now have a child. You now have a child.
I'm feeling concerned. I'm feeling in relationship, if you know, if I can just think about the when I have the baby, I'm co-parenting with a good friend of mine. And when I have the baby, I organize my schedule so that I am just doing him, you know, thinking about the baby. And that feels incredible and
In a
overwhelming.
good, you're enjoying that.
I'm enjoying it in relationship to many of, I mean, it's a lot of things, you know, it is difficult, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
enjoying it. It is such a deep joy that I don't really, my words aren't mature enough to yet to be able to describe that.
Mm-hmm.
It's still new, very new. I think that there's hope in it, and I feel like there's a lot of terror. I just feel a lot of terror.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, in this particular historical moment, but this historical moment doesn't feel extremely far from other recent terrors.
Right. And here, and maybe they've already answered this, but how are you feeling about the future of your art form or our art form?
I feel amazing about that. I mean, you know, I think that we have been dancing, our species has been dancing forever, you know, since our species was a species. I think that other species dance. I think that so much about being this planet is about dancing. Um, and I think that we are, I'm with Taji, the 20.5-month-old that I'm very lucky to be getting to know. With Taji, I've been teaching him and learning myself ASL, American Sign Language.
Mm-hmm.
And that has been really informative about how much, how communicative these bodies are, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
how important they are, how important the kind of sophistication and a nimbleness in these bodies is to being able to communicate things that are difficult.
Mm. I see. And my last question is, how are you feeling about the future of the world?
um, I'm feeling like the future of the world is long. I don't know that I have anything else useful to say right now about that, but I think the
Mm-hmm.
future of the world is long.
It is long. Okay, well, this has been really so heartfelt and so articulate. I thank you very much, and
Thank
we
you.
look forward to Terrestrial, the Sprout, in very short time, coming here to New York Live Arts. Until then, take care of yourself, and Taji, is that
Taji, yeah.
Taji, yeah. All the best to you. Look forward
Thank you.
to seeing in our house. Bye-bye now.
Take care.